As she explains here, she has done everything, left her family, fought her brother, even accepted her own death sentence to keep her identity from being known. The only time in the play, which again is disparate from the autobiographical account, that she reveals her true identity and tells her life story is, as previously mentioned, to save Doña Ana's honor. Velasco interprets this as indicative of both Montalban's and the public's perception of Arauso. Guzman's willingness to divulge her secret for the honor of her beloved clearly reveals Pérez de Montalban's interpretation of Arauso's identity as well as the perceived taste of the audience. I would go further and say that even after sharing this secret with Diego, Guzman is still unwilling to admit to her true gender. We can see this in the fifth and final scene of violence, the fourth of which we will return to shortly, in which Guzman attempts to take revenge on Diego for breaking his promised silence. The fourth scene in which Guzman takes to violence is perhaps the most important scene of the whole play. Her true gender has been revealed and she is returned to Madrid. She is under the care of Sebastián de Ayumbe and is to meet with the council of the court. Sebastián, however, insists that she must wear a respectable outfit, befitting of the occasion, and breaks her women's clothing. Guzman refuses, but is eventually convinced that this is the only way that she can gain an audience. What follows is a comical scene in which she and her servant, also male and unaccustomed to the complex dressing procedures of women at the time, attempt to dress her in women's garments. She attempts to put her skirts on over her sword, puts everything on backwards, and finally, hearing swords being drawn outside of the room, drops the skirts and runs out her undergarments, sword in hand. It is then that Sebastián realizes, el reducirlo es en vano, porque tiene solamente de mujer lo porfiado. However, this comic scene speaks more to the perceptions of Montalban and the public. It makes her look ridiculous, unable to be either fully male or female. Velasco, on the other hand, looks at this as an ironic scene of role reversal. Men trying to teach a woman how to dress like a woman, while the woman could easily give these men a lesson on how to behave like fearless warriors. They watch passively, while Guzman does not hesitate to grab her sword and attend to the male business of fighting. According to Velasco, it is not just that Montalban puts Guzman in this awkward position, rather that he, quote, seems to intuit that for Arauso, living as a woman would be much more of an unnatural performance than the act of challenging society's conflation of biology and gender by living as a man. I would suggest that performatively living as a man would be the only way that Montalban and his audience would understand Guzman Arauso, since, as we know, the distinction between sex and gender appears to have only originated in the mid-18th century, and terms such as transvestism and homosexuality are even more recent. I very highly doubt that Montalban was making such concessions for Arauso's desire to be male. Rather, he is pandering to the needs of his audience to see Guzman in a comedic light. Notably, this comedic scene only takes place after her real gender is revealed. Of course, the audience would have known the name La Monja Alférez, but Montalban waits, using the transition from male to female to maximum comedic effect. Montalban's account follows many of the accepted tropes of Spanish Golden Age theater. As Anita Stoll explains, the female protagonist most often provides the origin and resolution of dramatic conflict through her cleverness and action. And in hundreds of Golden Age plays, she appears at some point as a transvestite. There are numerous plays in which a woman appears dressed in men's clothing. The best known is Calderón's La Vida de Sueño, but as a topos, he also appears in various plays by Tirso de Molina, Lope de Vega, and others, usually in the hope of avenging or correcting some wrong done to her honor. The difference between these other Mujer Varonil plays and La Monja Alférez is that they are only cross-dressed temporarily to restore order to society and honor to themselves, whereas Guzman Arauso intends to live permanently as a man. Generally, Mujer Varonil comedias end, as Stoll tells us, when destructive patterns are set right in a flurry of appropriate pairings at the end. The playwright has captured his audience with a flirt with the forbidden, and then satisfied societal dictates by restoring all to order by the conclusion. There is an appropriate pairing at the end of La Monja Alférez, but it is between Diego and Ana, not Guzman and his love. In part, Montalban cannot diverge too far from the autobiographical account. He ends by explaining through the Visconde that, pues con aquesto y pidiendo perdón, tenga fin aquí este caso verdadero, donde llega la comedia, han llegado los sucesos, que hoy está el alférez monja en Roma, y si casos nuevos dieron materia a la pluma, segundo parte os prometo. As Velasco explains, although Arauso is not forced into heterosexual resolution, she does not live happily ever after with the woman she loves. While she is not killed off, she will presumably live alone without her beloved, who will receive the heterosexual prize of marriage to Diego. In performing La Monja Alférez on stage, Arauso's own attempts at performative gender are put into action. Velasco offers up several arguments as to whether or not Montalban intended for Guzman to be played by a male or female actor. Some scholars say that casting a female would titillate the audience and gain the desired comedic effect, while others argue that Guzman is based solely in terms of the masculine character of the protagonist. If this were the case, then the comedy comes in attempting to redress a man into a feminine role. In actual fact, we know that he cast a woman, Luisa de Robles, to play Guzman. What we know of Robles, that she married twice, the second time after suspecting her first husband dead at sea, the second marriage dissolved after the first husband's return, and that she then refused to live with either husband, as well as took on many male roles in other plays, including as the Antichrist in Hopkins' El Anticristo, gives a good indication of why she was the most probable casting choice for the part of Guzman. In any case, since we know that Montalban chose an actress to play Guzman, and that he completely downplays any of the feminine parts of her life, her time in convents, for example, gender here is performative, and the only real comedic aspect of dressing her as a woman is that it is so contrary to her nature that the act itself is absurd.